If you ever worked on large games with a lot of content, such as MMOs and RPGs, you know how difficult it is to work with multiple item names, and especially when you're localizing this into many languages. I worked on these projects, and back in the day, I tried many different solutions to help my team. One of them, of course, working with spreadsheets and trying different formulas to improve the efficiency. However, we all know that this adds extra layer of complexity to the project. So this is why we created a feature called Forge in Gaia, and I'm going to show you this feature right now. So there are three parts to this video. The first, I'm going to show you the overview of the Forge. The second is going to be the search, and the third is how to set up Forge in your project. So if you see here, this is the overview, and it shows the project that we are working on. It's called the Epic, the target language, how many items were created, and how many matrix columns are available. If we go to search, I added 2 items here. So you can see these are the items, and you can filter the items by typing anything here in the search. Let's say you want just to see bow, and you're going to see only this result. Now we are showing 2 of them. And you can also filter, there's a drop-down filter for nouns. So in this case, the system already knows what is a noun or what is a qualifier. So in this case here, you can see that all nouns are listed. So bow, chaos, and sword. And this is much easier to filter when you have hundreds, maybe thousands of items. So if I just go here and say, again, just bow or just chaos or both of them, or sword, you're gonna see only the specific items. And the qualifiers, this is also important because sometimes, most of the times, you have multiple qualifiers for specific items. So for instance, you have epic bow of chaos, but you can have perfect bow of chaos or magical bow of chaos. So you can search by qualifier and just filter all the items that you have for this specific qualifier. Here in the table, you can see the source, target language, what is the specific target language we're talking about, all the nouns for this specific item, the qualifiers, what is the status, how many times it has been repeated, when it was last updated, and a note for this type of item. And this is important because, as we're gonna see later, it is going to connect to both the translation memory and the glossary. And this is the action to remove this from the project. If we go to the Forge, this should look familiar to any of you who try to work with Excel or Google Sheets and trying to create concatenate formulas just to make sure that these items work well. We know that these work well when we are talking about English. When it comes to translating, the order of the words may change, or sometimes they need extra work because the gender is different, you need extra connectors. Things change when these items are going to translation. And then you have to go back to the engine or to the design document or even to the code and try to be as flexible as you can to adapt to these specific particularities for each language. This is not the case in the Forge. When you are in the Forge, you can actually create right here in this environment, and you do not need to change anything in the system, in the game code, because it's going to be right there as a standalone string for each of this content that you are creating. So first of all, what you can do here in the Forge, you can add nouns, you can add qualifiers, and you can add connectors. In this case, the base noun here is sword. The qualifiers I added are epic and chaos, and the connectors are off. You can add more. You can add actually as many as you want, so you can quickly create new items here and then submit them to the project. So in this case, let's just remove this slot because this one is empty. And you can see here there are 4 slots or 4 columns. And you can also see here that every time you see the content is going to be grouped or concatenated right in the item preview. And you can see this is actually wrong because in English, this is not a valid construction. First, you need to have the adjective and then the noun, but this is because it's reflecting exactly how it is here. In Gaia, you can just drag the columns, the cells actually like this, and it's going to change here so you can have a reference of how this is going to be displayed in the translation memory and in the project. So in this case, I just put right where it belongs. So epic sword of chaos, so you can see here the source is epic sword of chaos, and then the translation is this one here in Brazilian Portuguese. The efficiency of Gaia is that once you know what you're trying to create, you just click on generate and submit your project, and this is going to be added to the translation memory and to the glossary at the same time. In this case here, it's already created, so it's not going to create duplicates, which is also very useful when you're trying to create many items. Well, let's just create a new one right now. So instead of sword, let's say this is a helmet. So in Brazilian Portuguese, that would be elmo. And of course, this changes because it's not this noun in Brazilian Portuguese has a specific gender. It doesn't apply to English, but in Brazilian Portuguese, you need to change the qualifier depending on the gender of the noun. So this is going to be épico. And then when you do this and you generate and submit your project, it is going to create that item. And you can also, let's change this instead of chaos to light. Again, the connector should change because the connector should also align with the gender of the secondary noun that I'm here. So you see, da. Generate and submit your project. So when you do this, you are actually creating items very quickly. And if you go to search, these are already there. So you can see the epic helmet of light, the epic helmet of chaos, epic sword, and epic bow. They're all there. And if you go to the project and if you click on Open Translation Grid, you're going to see that these items were already added here, both the source and the translation. So this is another feature in Gaia that helps efficiency as much as possible, taking into consideration previous challenges that many of us faced when working with games with a lot of content and a lot of items. I hope you like it. Thank you and see you next time.